Welcome everyone to a new type of video for the Stupendous Wave channel. Instead of like a whole lore explanation or topic explanation video, I wanted to start doing some discussion based topics, and I'm joined here with my two podcast hosts, which are Evan Harris and then Star Wars Legacy. If you guys want to introduce yourselves.
Hello you guys, glad to be back.
Hey everyone, I'm very excited for this discussion.
Yeah, so we're just going to talk about some Star Wars topics and more general discussion, like in like a format similar to that rather than just the full explanations. So today we have a pretty interesting topic, and that is how powerful will Luke Skywalker be in The Last Jedi? And we're just kind of going to go around like a round table and each give some of our thoughts and some of the stuff that we know about Luke and how potentially powerful he could be based on some of the comments in the other films and other lore, and now based on Luke's view of the Force and the Jedi overall. So Evan, do you want to go ahead and start? How powerful do you think Luke will be in The Last Jedi?
I'm glad to start. I think he'll be very powerful in The Last Jedi, but you're not going to see him showcase all of his abilities in this one film. I think basing it off of Rian Johnson's comments on the film, I think he's very aware of people's expectations going into this movie. Most people just want to go see The Last Jedi, see Luke kick some butt, unleash a powerful force moves, kind of be like Darth Vader was at the end of Rogue One. But I don't think we're going to see a lot of that. I think we're going to get him showcasing a majority of his powers towards the end of the movie. I don't think we're going to see a lot of it when he's training with Rey. Kind of like how we didn't see a lot of how powerful Yoda actually was during the Empire Strikes Back. So in all, I think he's going to be very powerful, but I don't think Luke's the type of character to showcase how powerful he truly is in just one movie. So I think we're going to see him perform considerable amounts of force moves towards the end of this movie, but not a lot to say like, oh, he's stronger than like Yoda or he's stronger than Sidious. We can't base that assumption off of just one film, but I think we're going to see a lot of it from Luke towards the end of this movie.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And then I believe Mark Hamill even said something like, this is Rey's story now. It's not his story. Luke Skywalker's hero journey is over. That story is complete. And now he's a part of this story. This isn't his story, if that makes sense. As far as how powerful I think he will be, though, I think he's massively powerful. I think that he is potentially the most powerful Jedi in Star Wars canon. Our other, like, people that can compete with him are definitely Yoda and Obi-Wan. Those are the two front runners in canon. I definitely think he has the potential to be more powerful than both of those characters, and I wanted to bring this up. Luke's view on the Force now is very different than it was in past. It's very different than it was from other Jedi. Like Yoda believed strictly in adhering to the light side of the Force. Luke now, he kind of talks like he's more into melding those two things. Like Luke looks into the light and the dark, and Luke explains that it's so much bigger. So my running thought is, what if Luke has adopted kind of like the ideology or the thoughts of Kyle Katarn that he did in Legends? That being what Kyle Katarn believed was that no one ability is necessarily good or bad, that it's how one used that ability. And sure, they might have to be more aggressive to use that ability, but no one thing is good or bad. And that's why in Legends continuity, Luke used Force Lightning and Kyle Katarn used Force Lightning because they adhered to that philosophy that it wasn't really the ability necessarily that was bad, it was the user and the way they used that. So kind of what I'm thinking is it could be extremely interesting to see Luke use like a darker ability in The Last Jedi. And this brings me back to something else, and that's in Return of the Jedi, Luke Skywalker is choking Gamorrean guards. He's force choking them, and he's using his Jedi abilities in ways that the previous generation of Jedi would definitely consider questionable. But that's another thing we have to keep in mind, is this is a new era of Jedi. This is a new generation of Jedi. Luke represents a part of the Jedi that we are completely unfamiliar with at this point. They still have the name Jedi, but the order is vastly different at this point. So I honestly think that we could see Luke Skywalker utilize some darker aspects of the Force, or what we as audience members kind of think of darker aspects of the Force, maybe even use something like Force Lightning, maybe even a different color of Force Lightning. That's just kind of a thought that I've had for Luke Skywalker. Legacy, what do you think? How powerful do you think Luke will be in The Last Jedi?
Yeah, sure. I anticipate Luke to be very powerful. One of the most powerful Force users in canon and Legends. I say that because Luke is the son of Anakin. Now, Anakin had the biggest potential for anyone, in canon anyways. And also, I don't know if this relates that much to the question or how powerful he will be, but I think I recall Mark Hamill stating that he was involved in a heavy CGI scene. Now, I believe that scene may involve something to do with the Force and something that is really big. I remember him saying that it was a big moment.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that as well. There was rumors from making Star Wars that Mark Hamill was involved with the scene where there's a lot of wires going around. And that was around the same time we got the rumors that the Knights of Ren were coming to Ahch-To. So there's a rumor he could be possibly using all these little Force moves to be killing off the Knights of Ren. That'll be very interesting. Maybe he showcases a lot of things during that scene as well. But your comment, Stupendous, it kind of connects with what Mark Hamill was saying when he said he kind of fundamentally disagreed with the way Luke's going to be in The Last Jedi. Now, of course, his opinion has changed on that after he's seen the film, but I think one of the things he disagreed with was how kind of dark Luke's going to be. He's not going to be using, he's not going to be like a dark Jedi, but he's going to be probably using dark moves that Mark Hamill probably didn't think Luke would probably be using. I think Mark wanted a very light kind of Luke, but the damaged Luke that we're going to see in The Last Jedi kind of connects with what you're saying, using dark and using light Force abilities. So that's a very high possibility.
Yeah, and of course, I want to connect this back to what Legacy said about him being Anakin's son. Anakin is the chosen one. Anakin did have the potential to become the most powerful Jedi or Sith that has ever lived. And it's unclear at this point if Luke has received that same potential. It's never been specified in canon to my current knowledge. In Legends continuity, it was specified that Luke did hold that potential as well as Leia. But in canon, that's never been explicitly stated. And we're also not sure what Luke's midichlorian count is. And that won't be brought up in the film. But I'm just saying, in expanded works, that could be brought up. But it's really unclear where he stands. I do, however, want to point out that both Darth Vader and Emperor Palpatine himself state in Return of the Jedi that Luke has become very powerful and a real threat. In fact, in Empire Strikes Back, Palpatine considers Luke a real threat even before he has undergone any Jedi training. So I think that for arguably the most powerful characters in canon being Darth Vader and Emperor Palpatine, and for those of you that have read the Darth Vader comics certainly know that Darth Vader is one of the most powerful ever, and Palpatine goes with that being said. But if those two characters, the most powerful Sith without a doubt that we've seen thus far in canon, consider Luke their biggest threat at the time of Return of the Jedi, I think that that's very telling of what it is. And we know with the Force, age doesn't necessarily mean that a character is going to grow weaker. It's quite the opposite, actually, in a lot of cases, like Yoda, one of the most powerful Jedi ever, arguably the most powerful Jedi in canon right now, over 900 years old, one of the most powerful characters. Like I said, arguably the most powerful Jedi. So I think that Luke's age won't really have anything to do with it. And of course, as he progresses more as a Jedi and progresses more in power, I think that it won't be unreasonable to suggest that Luke Skywalker could be the most powerful character that we've seen so far in a Star Wars film. I know that the ones are more powerful and the Force priestesses, or maybe even not anymore, but I think that it's very reasonable to assume that Luke is the most powerful Jedi and maybe even the most powerful Sith. And I think that's why they've introduced an antagonist like Snoke, someone who's very mysterious, very powerful, and potentially could be a Force entity, not a Sith or anything else, but someone who is like an entity at this point, almost like a god. And I think that that's very telling to the power of Luke Skywalker. The big question with Luke Skywalker, if he is truly this powerful, why is he not acting on it? And I'd like to do another video about that, why we think Luke Skywalker hasn't acted on this big conflict just yet in the galaxy. That's kind of my thoughts. I think Luke is going to be exceptionally powerful.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree too. I think it's going to be very powerful. I'm very curious to see how they showcase how powerful he's going to be. We already see the Force Repulse in Battlefront 2, so he could possibly use that. But there's a lot of unknown things that we could see from Luke. I mean, if Kylo had the ability to Force free somebody, something completely new in The Force Awakens, there's like an infinite number of new Force powers that Luke can do in The Last Jedi.
Exactly. He's had so many years just to practice that stuff. And like you said, based off of what we saw from Kylo Ren with the new Force ability, a new, more creative way to use the Force, I think it's definitely in the realm of possibility that we will see some Force powers from Luke by the end of the series. In fact, I'm almost certain of it, that we've never even seen before. I think that that's going to be very, very interesting.
Yeah, I think so too. Because after the events of Return of the Jedi, Luke went searching for the most old of Jedi lore. And I think he would have definitely stumbled across some interesting stuff that would have developed his knowledge of the Force to an even greater extent.
Exactly. He's going to have a much more broad and maybe even a lot of ways more extensive knowledge of the Force than maybe even Yoda. He's very well could be the most intelligent, or maybe intelligent is the wrong word to use. Maybe the most, he's had the veil lifted about the Jedi. He understands the many flaws of the Jedi. He's the most perhaps enlightened of the Jedi that we've ever seen, which could make him more powerful. But I'm very interested to see that.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Luke is really the first Jedi that has had the privilege of being able to delve down the dark path, and having a larger view of the Force is indefinitely going to make him more powerful.
Exactly. If he has both aspects of the Force, like if he's able to use that, but still at the same time remain cemented in the light side of the Force, or like the Jedi way, or a new Jedi way now from what we're hearing, because we know that he says the Jedi must end. We don't know if that's like the old Jedi Order and he's going to construct a new one, or the Jedi entirely. But I think that Luke Skywalker definitely will be using some abilities that we would consider darker, but I also think that it's going to change how we view those abilities over the course of the film. Like, abilities that we go into The Last Jedi thinking are inherently dark and are used by the dark side of the Force will be altered, and I think that they're really going to bring back that whole Kyle Katarn, Luke Skywalker Legends mentality that no single ability is dark. Anyway, guys, that's kind of our thoughts on how powerful Luke Skywalker will be in The Last Jedi. If you enjoyed this more discussion type video, please be sure to leave a like, as that indicates to us that you want to see more of them. If you enjoyed hearing all three of us just talk, we do have a podcast called The Rule of Three. We're planning to do one once a week, every week, so be sure to stay tuned for that and subscribe to the channel. As always, may the Force be with you, and have a great day.